Hey everybody, it's Tyler Austin. Thank you so much for watching. So I just want to make a quick video to let you know of a book that I think is required reading for anybody who considers themselves in the gun culture, or a gun owner really, or really anybody who considers themselves part of the freedom culture. And that book is called Unintended Consequences by John Ross. You can find this at accuratepress.com. Although it's a novel and technically fictitious, and it's a pretty big novel, it's like a little over 860 pages, why I think this is so important and why I think you should read it is because the first half of the book is dedicated to primarily character development, but also goes into great detail on the history of gun control, primarily in the United States, but also dives into a little bit of it in other countries such as Nazi Germany and so forth, but dives into great detail on the history of gun control in the United States. Lots of facts, lots of history, things that I didn't even know, and also dives into this general expansion of federal power and the abuse of that power. Also dives into great detail on events like Ruby Ridge and the Waco Massacre and so forth. So that's what the first half of the book is dedicated to. But in the second half of the book, the story goes how John Ross, the author, thought how this would eventually come to a head, and how he thought the American people would eventually revolt against this abuse of federal power. It's going to happen a lot different than how most people think it would happen. A lot of people think it's going to happen very similar to how the first American Civil War happened, North versus South, that kind of deal. And although that's a possibility, especially if states start to secede from the Union and stuff, I think the more likely scenario is what is outlined in this book. And I'm not going to spoil the book for you. You got to go out and get it yourself and read it. But it's a lot more localized and a lot more targeted than like a, widespread conventional war, if you will. It's basically individual people or small groups of people actively targeting and killing and assassinating primarily federal agents, and due to the book's topic, if you will, primarily ATF agents, but also people in like the EPA and other federal agencies, and also legislators as well that have pushed for gun control and all that. So it's a lot more targeted and a lot more decentralized, if you will. So it's a great read. I highly recommend it. It's a thriller. It really is. Like, again, even though the first half is dedicated to character development and history, there's a lot of stories in there that really draw you in. You want to keep reading it. But the second half of the book is very, very thrilling. You will read it for hours and hours and hours on end, and you don't want to put it down. And when you do put it down, it's always in the back of your head that you want to go back and pick it up and continue reading it. It's a thriller. It's very, very well written. Lots of violence, so definitely not for the faint of heart. But otherwise, an extremely good novel. It's very similar in structure, if you will, and character development to Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. It's fairly similar, although a completely different topic, this being on primarily gun control. So yeah, highly recommended. I think it's required reading for anyone who considers themselves part of the gun culture. It's called Unintended Consequences by John Ross. You can find it at accuratepress.com. Again, that's accuratepress.com. I'll have a link down in the description below. Hopefully, if YouTube doesn't boot this video, because I have a link to it, pricks. But if the YouTube doesn't get kicked off for it, I'll have a link down in the description below, and you can find it. Pick up a copy, read it, pick up multiple copies, maybe to give to friends, or just to have several copies on hand just in case it ever goes out of print. So again, Unintended Consequences by John Ross. You can find it at accuratepress.com. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, follow, depending on where you're watching this. I'm Tyler Austin. Thank you so much for watching.